All right, what's up, everybody? Pretty much, once again, no introduction necessary. I think 90% of my audience, knows who this man is. But just in case you don't know who this guy is, this is Mr. Sean Mcnamara. He's a phenomenal teacher. I mean, really, one of my all-time favorite guys. Such a humble man, and really well spoken and really knowledgeable and really, really, really solid and legit in everything he does. He tries to do everything right and stuff like that, and like really, really tries to show solid proof that telekinesis is real and stuff like that. I think he's one of the biggest contributors of like spreading this telekinesis work and stuff. And I'm super, super, super honored to have him today. Aside from telekinesis, he teaches stuff like remote viewing, astral projection, lucid dreaming, and recently he started doing like experiments with the psychedelics and things like that. And also, I haven't checked this course out quite yet, but he started um, teaching telepathy recently as well, which I'm super excited to ask a lot about that. Was that a good enough introduction, Sean, or should I elaborate more? Or...
No, that was great, Ken. Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I really appreciate the invitation. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So Sean, obviously, you and I are, fairly well known. Well, you're very well known in the TK industry. I'm known for like interviewing all these TK, practitioners and stuff like that. I mean, this we spoke about it briefly in our Facebook chat, but obviously, you wanted to kind of walk away from the TK community. I've walked away so many times in the TK industry because I've seen so many problems. I really don't. I personally don't want to go into. I don't want to spend the entire show talking about that and stuff like that. But you know, really, I mean, my audience knows who you are. Really, I mean, I could just ask you questions like, hey, so how did you discover TK and stuff? My audience probably has seen you ask or has have seen you answer that question on like all these other podcasts already and stuff like that. So I think instead of, and this might be really, really disappointing for my audience and stuff, but really, I mean, for me, there's like 3 more telekinesis guys that I want to interview. I mean, there's 6 major teachers, I would say, in the West, in the English speaking countries, if you will, that are teaching telekinesis. Sean's definitely one of them. Sean's arguably the best one, in my opinion. What is it about telekinesis, Sean, that you kind of said, just I'm kind of okay, like dealing with this. I mean, we briefly spoke out, Sean and I actually had a Zoom call about 2 years ago and stuff, and he was telling me at the time, he didn't like the constant bullying he gets and stuff, and he got rid of the comments section on his YouTube channel, which I did the same thing for a while because I just couldn't. I just kind of got tired of dealing with the trolling and the bullies and stuff like that. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So there are probably 3 or 4 different reasons, and I'm happy to explain each one. Hopefully, I can remember them all. At the time when you and I spoke a few years ago, I was feeling a lot of pressure from social media and people online, and I did go ahead and close off the remarks section of my videos, because even if I would set that I had to approve them before they went public, I mean, meant I had to read every single one, and so reading all the, and it just gets exhausting because a lot of people would challenge or doubt what's going on. But the reason for why it wasn't real, like they weren't using logic themselves, it was just an emotional response for them.
Yeah.
And I learned a long time ago that it's impossible to change someone's mind, that a person has to change their own mind. So they'd have to be willing to do the work, to learn a technique and test it out. But of course, if they believe that it's not real, they're not going to really test it out. They're going to make sure they fail and say, see, it doesn't work. And I just got tired of dealing with that kind of personality type. And I figured whoever's benefiting from the lessons and the videos and the books, they don't need to make a nice comment. Like, I know and trust that they're having a good time. They're getting what they need out of it. And that's all that's important. I don't need them to say, thanks, Sean, or anything like that. I put it out with the intention that the people who need it will use it and get something out of it. And then the people who want to trash it, I don't need to hear from them at all. There's
Right.
no reason for me to be open to their comments. So, but it did wear me down emotionally. We're social
Yeah.
creatures. Human beings are social creatures. We're empathetic because it's important for our survival. We live in groups, we depend on each other, and empathy, knowing how other people in the group feel about you, is an evolutionary part of our survival mechanism. So we're so sensitive to other people's opinions. And suddenly everything is heightened about 1,000% with the internet and social media. So every positive and negative comment has a lot more weight to it. And I
Right.
think, people like you and me and other telekinesis practitioners are naturally sensitive people
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
because of the training. We learn how to feel in a deep way.
Mhm.
And we can't just choose, I'm going to feel for TK, but I'm not going to feel in my social world. No, we become sensitive to everything.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm generalizing. Maybe someone out there doesn't have that experience. I'm generalizing, but I think we tend to be a sensitive bunch. We're sensitive to feelings, to perceptions, to emotions, and to other people's opinions and all that stuff. And so that's why I started feeling like, oh, I'm backing out of this. I put out my books and my online courses, and I thought, that's out there. I don't have to be a target for people because my resources are out there.
Right.
And yet some things still continued. So I continued teaching other psychic abilities. I did stop teaching telekinesis in the classroom. So I remember now, I have a few other reasons why I kind of cooled off on it. One
Yeah.
is because it's very tricky on one's sense of self, that if I learn to move a little piece of paper or tinfoil, naturally the next thing is, well, what if the piece of paper is a little bit bigger? Or what if I stack a few of them? And
Mhm.
it's always a question, how much can I do?
Right.
What's the heaviest I can move? Can I move a salt shaker? Can I move my cell phone? Can I move a pencil? And then even more grandiose thoughts, like, could I move a car? Those ideas, it's natural because we all grew up watching superhero movies where half the
Right.
superheroes these days are psychic and they're using TK in Hollywood. And so you wonder, well, could that be real? And it's hard. I started pushing myself privately. I didn't put a lot of this publicly on videos, but private
Mhm.
experiments where I started trying to move heavier amounts of the target.
Mhm.
And my heart center here started hurting
Yeah.
a lot. And I'm
Yeah.
sensitive to that because when I was in my 20s, I had a minor heart procedure done.
Mhm.
And I grew up having heart palpitations too. And even though I'd had this surgery in my 20s, now here I'm having this heart pain every time I practice telekinesis, trying to move something bigger.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, this is kind of getting into dangerous territory, because if we think back to the Russian mystic Nina Kulagina from the 1950s,
Right. She died. Yeah.
died of a heart attack. She would do these hours-long sessions. They would take all her biomeasures, and
Mhm.
after 8 hours of experiments, she lost 10 pounds of weight.
Yeah.
She would sweat profusely. Her heart
Yeah.
rate would go through the roof. And then, yeah, she ended up
Right.
dying of a heart attack.
Right. I'm so sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
do you know about John? Or sorry, the guy in this poster right here, John Chang? Do you know his story?
Just the videos that I've watched online, but I don't know him
Yeah.
or his people
Yeah.
personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've also read that when he levitates and stuff, he lost a few pounds. I mean, please correct me, someone watching this, if that's false information. But I thought I heard that he, when because he was supposedly able to levitate his body and stuff. But anytime he does, he supposedly lost like a ton of weight as well. So that's yeah. So it seems like it takes a lot out of you to do this metaphysical stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly, because there's the non-physical aspect of psychic functioning, but it does have to integrate with the physical world on some level. And
Hmm.
maybe in John Chang's case, when he lost weight, there was a shift in mass or a shift in his relationship to Earth's gravity. Any number of things could be going on, so that if they put him on a scale after levitating, he would seem to weigh less. And there might be a metaphysical explanation for that, connected with
Hmm.
ordinary physics too.
Hmm.
But going back to the heart thing, there was also that telekinesis practitioner, Fadi Mir. Do you remember
Yeah.
hearing about him?
Yeah. Yeah. From Turkey. Yeah.
And he
Yeah,
died.
he died as well from a heart attack. Yeah.
Yeah. And he could do
Yeah.
amazing things.
Yeah.
And so keeping those two people in mind and the fact that I was pushing so much, I had to stop and ask myself, why? Why am I trying to do more? Why isn't it satisfying just to know that I could move a little piece of tinfoil? Why wasn't that enough? And there's two answers, two obvious answers. One is my own ego. The other one is social pressure, because people would ask, well, what's the heaviest thing you've ever moved? Or could you do more? Could I do more one day? All that stuff. So I thought, well, I'll check it out, see if I can do more. But that's a little bit too much pride there, a little bit too much arrogance on me. And I thought, well, I'm endangering my health at this point. Maybe it's my physical heart that's hurting. Maybe it's my energy, my subtle energy system that's hurting. And I'd rather be alive and not telekinetic than being able to move something heavy and then die of a heart attack the next day. It's just not worth it, right? Because at the end of the day, what can you do with telekinesis? You know, it shows something. It's beautiful. It's like a little tiny miracle, but I think it's a completely natural part of the world, a natural part of life. And I thought, well, I don't need to be able to do more to be a happy human being. And if I try to do more, I might become sick or worse. So that's another reason why I backed out of it. And let's see if I can remember any of the other reasons. I mean, that's the main one, is my health was starting to suffer from training so hard, and also the constant social pressure and criticism from pseudo skeptics.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, if people want to learn this, there are other great teachers out there. I saw you recently interviewed Trevor Seven. He inspired me. People could go to him or any of the other teachers that are out there. Like, I don't need to do this. And okay, so I have remembered the other reason. The other reason was the spark in me, the spark of curiosity had also burned out. And so when I started trying to learn telekinesis, I was really curious. I really wanted to learn. I really wanted to have that experience. And that spark, it became a passion, and that kept me training for months and months and months every day until I succeeded. But then I kept practicing, getting better over the next couple of years. But at a certain point, I noticed that I'd sit down to train, and I wasn't all that interested. Deep inside, that curiosity had been fully satisfied. That on a very subtle level, subconscious or unconscious, I didn't need to do this anymore because I'd satisfied my interest, my question, is this possible? And I determined several times, many times, yes, it's possible, it's real, I can do it. And so once I realized that the satisfaction was there, then my overall interest went down, and I would sit there and half the time I'd not even paying attention because I was kind of bored. And I was like, how many times do I have to repeat this? You know, I only need to do it once to satisfy my curiosity. So the spark burned out. And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. What's bad is it took me so long to realize that because I wasted I could have been doing other things. And this answers a question that I used to ask myself all the time. I would teach people in the classroom how to do this. And in 2 hours, they could do everything I could do. And I would offer these classes once in a while, and nobody ever came back who had been successful the first time. And I realized because they were satisfied. They had the question, they came, they had a great experience, and their question about telekinesis was fully answered, and they were satisfied. And then they were able to move on with their lives and start experiencing other things. Like they didn't need to do it over and over again because they're like, I got the experience. That's all I need. And I suspect that that's probably how it is for most people who practice telekinesis. They train and train and train, and then they have a few successes and go, that's great. Now I'm going to go do something else. And so I did that in a way. You know, I moved on and started learning other things and teaching other things. And that's why today I'm focusing on telepathy. And it's been a long time since I focused on telekinesis. I still love talking about it and giving guidance on it, but I don't do the classroom training anymore.
Yeah. I mean, everything you said, I can 100% relate to. I mean, my telekinesis journey started with Trevor, just like, you know, You similar to Sean, and I bought Sean's course, then became thankfully I became an affiliate for him and stuff like that of his courses and stuff, and it took me a but I gotta tell you, it took me a long time, man, to actually do well. It's not even the side wheel, like it took me a long time to even do it under glass, because I bought your course in 2017. I mean, it's not until like 2020 that I actually got to do to do it under glass, but that's because I didn't really start focusing on it until like 2019. There's other people that, kind of helped me out there and stuff like that. But correct me if I'm wrong, it took you 5 months to do under glass, or am I wrong?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was about half a year. Yeah.
And how many hours did you sit by the side wheel and under glass?
Yeah, it was anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half at a time.
Wow.
So just
I mean,
really,
some people, use their chi and with their hands and go like this and stuff. Do you have any you know what I'm talking about? Like
yeah.
they basically wave their hands around the side wheel and stuff. You're not a big fan of that, right? I mean,
No, and I'll tell you why. And I need to be careful when I say this because I don't want to offend anyone accidentally. There are ways where people can slowly move their hand at a distance, and if it works, and that's fine. But I see a lot of people on video, like they'll post their own YouTube videos, or a lot of students will shoot videos and email them to me, and they want me to say, yes, this is the real thing. And I can't do that because I see people doing this. They're doing this, or they're moving very quickly, right? And so they're probably heating up the air, heating up the glass, or causing a static charge somehow. Or somehow, if their elbows are on the table, they're vibrating any sort of thing could be happening when they're doing this so vigorously, especially if the object starts moving right away. If it moves right away after they've been doing this for about 10 seconds, I really have doubts that it's telekinesis. It could be an ordinary explanation. That's why I teach the method of not moving your hands. And then eventually stage by stage where your hands are in your lap. And then you're sitting across the room. That way there's no question about, is it static? Is it wind moving from the air? Is it some kind of vibrations, physical vibrations? But I do understand that maybe someone's a Qigong practitioner, Neigong practitioner, and they might be doing a slow hand movement to help with their technique of transferring energy. That's legit. But when people are doing this kind of thing, I have a lot of questions about that. I mean, like if for me personally, Sean, if it's under glass and they're waving their hands, if the whatever object is inside and they're waving their hands, to me that's that's legit. But if there's I gotta be careful when saying this too, because I've in the past I've offended some TK practitioners and stuff, and I don't want to go through that again. But please, just I'm not criticizing anybody and stuff. But for me, if there's nothing under glass, there's like a rollable object or something, and you're literally just waving your hands, then that's no offense, that's just the win. In my humble opinion, I could be wrong, but in my humble, I know you made a video about that too in the past, like the hand waving stuff. But to me, as long as something's under glass and you're, because I've seen people wave their hands, like a ping pong ball or something is inside of a glass container and stuff, and it's clearly moving. The ball is clearly moving through there according to their hand movement stuff. Like I've seen videos like that, and that's, to me, that seems pretty legit and really, really impressive to me. Very impressive.
Yeah.
Cool.
We touched upon Qigong and Neigong and stuff. Do you have any experiences with Qigong or Neigong at all? I mean, Trevor Seven, when I spoke to him a few weeks ago, he said that he started out with Qigong and stuff like that. Do you have any personal experiences at all?
It's been a few years. I used to dabble in that stuff, but I don't have formal training. I'd learn from stuff online, or I would buy books and DVDs and do the practices. But I stopped a while ago too. It was probably a focus around the time I was doing telekinesis because of the energy aspect. But it turns out
Mhm.
that my style of telekinesis isn't so much energy based. It's I would describe it as more information based.
Mm.
Yeah, changing the movement of molecules with
Mhm.
intention. So it's not
Mhm.
about like shooting energy out of the hands. Although
Mm.
that might be occurring, but that is not the significant aspect of the technique how I teach
Mhm.
it. It's something
Mhm.
on a different order. And I'm not saying it's better than, I'm just saying it's a different way of doing it.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's not so much about shooting energy from the body. It's more
Mhm.
about
Mhm.
using a deep awareness, connecting with the larger reality, and then
Mhm.
reconstructing how the target is behaving.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. So Sean, what is like the heaviest object you're able to move, um, for from your personal experience? Like, was it some type? Was it like a stack style wheel or something, perhaps?
No,
Or
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was. I would just stack the tinfoil or stack the paper,
Mhm.
and I was getting to the thing where I would try and weigh it on a scale and
Mhm.
see, and I just
Mhm.
had to let that go because it was just
Mhm.
pressure and ego.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Sean's such a humble guy and stuff, and a lot of people kind of get lost in the ego trap for sure. I admit that I've kind of gone down that path as well. I'm super ashamed to admit, but there is a part of me that still says, like, you know what I mean, like man, like maybe one day I can reach that level where I can be Jedi and stuff. And it's not like I've given up on that dream, but like Sean said, that's social pressure because every time I say things like, yeah, I'm a telekinesis practitioner. Oh, that's great. Like, hey, can you move that, some kind of object in your room or something? And I'm like, no. Well, then that's not telekinesis. Then it's like, yeah, well, I guess you have a point. Like, you know what I mean? It's just the social pressure is so overwhelming and stuff. And that's why I kind of came to realize like I'm probably better off just being a podcaster, just an interviewer and just asking people questions because like it's so hard to be like John Chang, like we get everybody's. I mean, John Chang's so high level that he can demonstrate stuff. Like for me, like I can only demonstrate so little. Like, and it's just the pressure is overwhelming and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, I can totally relate to everything Sean said, and just constantly answering like the skeptics too and the bullies and stuff. It's
yeah.
just so many out there, and just psychologically, it's just just weighs on you eventually. So.
The ego thing, I think it's okay. I don't think we need to be embarrassed about our egos. I think it's part of the path.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're starting out, we're excited, we're optimistic, and then we have some success and we want to do more and more. And then it goes to our heads a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then we realize it, and then we can learn from it and
Mm-hmm.
not let it go to our head. So I think developing a big fat ego is like growing a big balloon and then it
Mm-hmm.
pops. And
Mm-hmm.
then we know to spot it next time it happens. Like if we ever
Mm-hmm.
become prideful again, we're like, I'm not going to do that again. I know that it doesn't really lead anywhere. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
ego process, it's natural for it to get big with telekinesis practice. And it doesn't mean we're bad people because of it. It's just
Right.
kind of the human thing.
Right.
And it's just that when we never identify it and never fix that, that's a problem. If it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, then we become
Mm-hmm.
psychopaths or monsters. It's just,
Right.
we end up falling on our faces at a certain point and realize I was kind of being arrogant. And then
Yeah.
we achieve some humility then. So we kind of learn by our mistakes. And I think that's natural and okay. It's just when we don't learn, that's the problem.
Right.
And then you mentioned John Chang too. He, from what I remember reading his biography, I think that one of his students wrote about him. But
Right.
he spent a lot of time by himself.
Right.
Like,
Sean, I'm
yeah,
so sorry right now.
yeah.
I just gotta go take care of something real quick. I'll be
Oh,
back in like
sure,
10
sure, sure,
seconds.
sure. Okay,
I'm
yeah.
so sorry. So sorry, what were you saying about John
Oh,
Chang?
John Chang. So he spent a lot of time training by himself in the jungle,
Mhm.
right? And was it Indonesia
Mhm.
or yeah?
Yeah.
Um, and so he could do a lot more because he wasn't on social media every day. I think
Mhm.
probably most of his life was spent before the internet was even
Right.
public.
Right.
And It's like meditators. If we're a
Mhm.
meditator in the modern day in the city, it's different from being a yogi who lives in a
Mhm.
cave all her life or his
Mhm.
life. We're going to
Mhm.
have very different experiences. So
Mhm.
we're doing the best we can while having to juggle jobs, traffic,
Mhm.
relationship, social media. And
Mhm.
so we're doing the best we can under those circumstances. Meanwhile, John Chang and people like him, they spent months and years by themselves focusing
Mhm.
on one thing, on their
Mhm.
energy or their consciousness. So
Mhm.
of course you're going to have much more powerful results. And the other thing too is, if I remember correctly, in John Chang's tradition, you really don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And even in Buddhist traditions in Tibet and India, it's taught actually, and in Southeast Asia also, when, let's say, monks, when they develop higher states of concentration that lead to liberation in their path, they're not allowed to brag about it. They're not
Mhm.
allowed to share their experiences with people. They can
Mhm.
share techniques, but they can't brag or they can't show off if they have magical abilities. And the same
Mhm.
thing with yogis in the Himalayas or the jungles of
Mhm.
India.
Mhm.
They're not supposed to show their abilities, no matter how awesome they are. And
Mhm.
that's because why? That attracts public criticism,
Mhm.
skeptics,
Mhm.
distractions, noise, and it could make their egos swell up. If there's no audience, then the ego
Mhm.
is not going to swell up. Then you're truly doing it just for yourself, not to tell the world.
Mhm.
But I think there's an in between. People like you and me and other telekinesis teachers, we do talk about it. We talk about it loud because we put it on the internet. But I don't
Mhm.
think it's just to show off. It's to show something to the world to
Mhm.
benefit people, to share
Mhm.
insights about the nature of reality, that we're all
Mhm.
interconnected on an energetic level, on a
Mhm.
non-physical level. And
Mhm.
that sense of connection is so important these days because in modern society, especially in the United States, we're so isolated from each other. And we're
Mhm.
isolated from Mother Earth and the planet Earth. And that's why we're destroying Mother Earth, because we
Mhm.
think we're separate from her.
Mhm.
The telekinesis shows us, oh no, we're connected to each other and the
Mhm.
planet and the universe. So maybe we need to care a little bit more, you know? So I think that's
Mhm.
why people like you and me and other teachers share instead of
Mhm.
keeping it secret.
Mhm.
And the sharing is what allows other people to learn these techniques. If nobody said anything, nobody would even know telekinesis was a thing or that it was real, and
Right.
nobody would ever try anymore. And it can be such a source of inspiration in a most beautiful way for someone to learn how to do this. They realize, oh, if I could succeed at doing something like this, what if I put the same amount of focus on my work at school, if you're a student, or in my
Mhm.
career, if you're a professional, or on my relationship, if you're someone's husband or wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, lover, whatever, partner. If I focus on that, can I make that relationship bloom? Can I make my career amazing? Can I be a really good student? Can I be a good parent or a good child? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think there's a good reason why we're sharing that these days instead of keeping it secret in a cave somewhere, you know. But it limits, but there's
Yeah.
a sacrifice because it limits. We can't do as much as someone like John Chang because we don't live in the jungle. We have too much other
Mhm.
stuff to worry about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Sean, you spoke about like the world briefly. Where do you think our world's headed right now? Like, do you think the world's headed to towards something greater? Like, we can, become like a very much, uh, you know, like a very conscious, oriented society is where we're headed to? Or do some people say like, we're headed towards like complete destruction and things like that? Like, like you said, like, we're not treating Mother Earth very well, the environments and things like that. Like economy is a mess. People say these things. I try not to like, look into negative aspects of society and like conspiracies and things like that too much. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a tough question because naturally there are a lot of forecasts on social media. A lot of people are trying to predict what's going to happen in the next 5 years, in the next
Mhm.
10, 50 years. And usually it's based off of, they might think it's based off of information, but it's also irrational. It's part of their level of fear that they feel, or freedom from fear. I think human beings these days are doing the same thing we've always been doing, that we're operating both from love and also from fear and selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier these days for individual humans to have so much power, especially in terms of money, millionaires and billionaires influencing politics and industry. So they have a lot of sway in the world, but they're not all bad. People with a lot of power, there are a lot of good people who have a lot of power. There are also a lot of people producing innovations to save the world, ways to clean up the oceans, ways to get clean water for impoverished nations, ways to grow more food for the hungry parts of the world. So I think crisis can lead to innovation, new technology, and force the heart to open for some people. And I think it's been that way all along, that we have people who are operating selfishly because they have too much power, and that means that they lack empathy. And then everyone else who has the empathy and the knowledge and skills and the drive. And so these two forces are always working with and against each other. Neither can survive without the other. If you think about the yin yang symbol, the light and the dark balanced, and I think that balance is still occurring on our planet. I can't predict what's going to happen, but what I try to do is to be on the side of light and help people who want to help other people. And I think that people who train in psychic abilities like telekinesis are important, because those kinds of people think differently. They think creatively, they think outside of the box, they break social conventions, they do things that other people believe are impossible. And that's exactly the kind of person who's going to make new inventions, who are going to make new forms of medicine to heal people. We're going to find new forms of growing food, cleaning the air, cleaning the oceans, new economic models, new political models. It's the people who think differently who will help the world survive and thrive. And so maybe these future innovators, when they were younger, they were psychic practitioners. And a lot of people who've been very inventive, they received their ideas in dreams or in the middle of the night or during meditation. That these were states of mind that were open to novel ideas. So people, if you're training in telekinesis, you're going to have periods where you're in a state of flow, and you might get an idea that saves the world or saves your country or saves your family, So I think I left your question a little bit, but I can't predict, but I think there'll always be this working of the negative and the positive. That's always going to happen. And even if it ends up badly, it's not the end. There'll be a rebirth. And there's probably already been several rebirths of the human race.
Yeah.
Over the past many thousands of years. If people read Graham Hancock's books.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. Yeah.
So we've probably hit the restart button a few times already, and we'll do it again.
You were, I didn't know you believed in that theory, but that's interesting. Yeah.
That there was a prior civilization.
Yeah.
And then there was something that caused a very fast change in climate, causing the ice age, and that was probably an asteroid. And that would explain why after the last asteroid strike, the younger Dryas, the older Dryas, all that period of the ice age, why civilization seemed to suddenly grow at a very fast pace, which doesn't make sense. That knowledge would have needed to be passed on to survive that period for society to innovate so quickly from the ice age. So that's basically what Graham Hancock's hypothesis is, if I'm remembering it correctly. But I think there's a lot to it. I'm I'm not a scientist on that level. He's a journalist, but he's done his homework. And I know a lot of people don't like his ideas because then they would have to rewrite the history books and they'd have to say, we were wrong. And nobody ever likes saying that they're wrong.
Right, certainly. Yeah, full of surprises. Yeah, I didn't know Sean looked into Graham Hancock's work. I'm certainly a big fan. Sean, so I think we talked enough about telekinesis. You're also very a solid remote viewer as well as a mind sight practitioner. And we're both both good friends with Wendy. Um, so like correct me if I'm wrong, Sean. Don't you when you sort of tried to merge. Please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but if I'm not mistaken, didn't you try to? Because there's the standard remote viewing protocols that are amazing out there, and you also practice mindsight. Didn't you sort of try to like merge the two techniques together in your own way? Am I correct on that? Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I think you're picking up on what I've been trying to do for a while. I don't like dogma.
Oh yeah.
I don't like rules. So when I teach remote viewing, I do it in a very organic, basic way. And that makes it easier for brand new people to learn it, to experience it right away. And then they can go learn more of the structured formats from other people. And also, I'm not like an official remote viewer. I'm not trained in any of their programs. I just learned on my own. So I need to be careful to not say like, I'm a remote viewer. That means something specific. And I'm not. I teach remote viewing, but I'm not like any of the original members of that team. And I'm not a student of those original members. Everything that I do, I've taught myself how to do, usually from reading their books or taking their courses. But I'm an independent person. But so I teach in a very open way. And I did for a while try and combine that with what I learned from experimenting with seeing blindfolded or what's called mindsight. That's the title of my book about it. Because I think there's benefits for remote viewers. If they train in mindsight, which is basically clairvoyance, it'll help them with remote viewing. But that didn't seem to catch on. And I didn't spend too much time and effort trying to get that message across. I figure the people who are open to it, they'll find their way there anyway. But I find that I'm generalizing, some people interested in remote viewing, they're only going to train in remote viewing. People interested in other abilities are only going to train in that. But I tend to be different from that. I spend some time in this thing, then I go and learn this thing. And when I learn it, I teach it. Then I move on to the next thing. And then I try and combine them because I think on some level, they're all the same ability. It's all about the non-physical consciousness. So not the physical brain, but something much larger, probably just our being entangled with the whole universe. Remote viewing is just clairvoyance. It's the protocol that you use of feedback and using a coordinate, going through stages, all those, that's a protocol. But it's a protocol designed to use clairvoyance efficiently. Mindsight is clairvoyance, and you happen to use a blindfold to help with that. Telepathy is clairvoyance between two living systems, like between two people reading each other's minds. It's all clairvoyance. Or and it's not just about what you see, but it's about what you smell, taste, hear, and feel, and just information. And actually that's even better. It's not just clairvoyance. It's all information transfer. At the root, it's all the same thing. It just takes on these different colors like a rainbow. So I want to encourage people to cross-train. Like just recently, a few days ago, I put out, I'm going to be leading another telepathy Zoom class. It's a 3-hour class. And in there I say, remote viewers will be interested because it's cross-training. If you can do telepathy, if you learn telepathy, that'll enhance your remote viewing ability. If you do remote viewing, that'll enhance your telepathy ability. Because at the root, it's all the same thing. So it's fun. It adds variety when you try and exercise your psychic ability in different ways. It could show you something new. It could enhance your ability. It could lead to new insights. And And some people like that, some people don't. That's fine. If you have your one thing that you just want to focus on it, and you have your one way and your one teacher, that's fine. That's great. I'm more like a bee flying from flower to flower, learning everywhere I can, and then making up my own thing based on what I learned, and then passing that on. And when I teach people, I tell them, now you know the technique, you teach it if you want, if you're a teacher, because not everyone's a teacher. A teacher, it's really just a personality style.
Right.
Not everyone has that personality, and not that it's the best personality. It's just a kind of personality. Right. And I'm not even particularly psychic. I teach.
What do you mean by that?
It's true. People have seen what I can do, but it's about average. When I teach people, they can all do what I can do, or more, or better. Most of my students are better than I am at the ability.
Right. Yeah.
My skill is at teaching. I'm really good at helping people access their psychic abilities. That's my skill set. That's my thing, not the psychic stuff that I do myself. So that hopefully that's encouraging to people. Like they might I have my book, Dewdrops of Infinity, where it has the results of my telepathy and remote viewing experiments. You can see what I drew for the targets and everything. And it's good stuff, but anyone can do that. It's not super awesome. It's not blow your mind awesome. It's about what most people can do when they receive the good instructions. And that's where I come in. I'm really good at giving people instructions.
So, yeah.
And that's why I'm a therapist these days. I just like working with people and sharing with them. So that's kind of my skill, not the psychic stuff.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself? So I don't know if I should say this publicly, but you mentioned 2 years ago when I spoke to you that you eventually plan on retiring. Is that still your goal?
Well, I thought I was headed that direction, and I even mentioned that in another interview earlier this year, that I think I'm out of this whole consciousness thing. I'm just going to focus on regular life, and it's not happening because I enjoy teaching so much.
Wow, no, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm such a big fan of you. Like, that's so awesome to hear. Because it's on one hand, it's like, I'm so happy for Sean because Sean's such an awesome guy, and finally he's freeing himself from the bullies and the trolling and stuff like that. Like, I'm so happy for him, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I'm gonna miss watching Sean because, but it's so nice to hear that from you. I just wanted to say that real quick.
Well, and it's kind of a selfish thing because it makes me so happy to teach, to make new friends. I always make a lot of new friends when I teach, and forming these little communities, even if it's just a community for 3 hours. People need other people in this realm, this consciousness exploration. It's a lonely place because most people, they're the black sheep in their family. Nobody believes them. They can't talk about it at work. We need each other. We need to connect with each other. So when I teach in a classroom or on Zoom, it's an instant community of support. We support each other, and sometimes it builds lasting friendships or great networking possibilities. So there are a lot of great benefits for me and for the people who attend to do these classes. It's about personal connection, which I think is one of the most important things in life, is feeling accepted by other people, being seen and listened to by other people, and doing it in the sacred space. I think the psychic exploration stuff is sacred work. For me, it's a spiritual path. It's not religious, but it's definitely spiritual. It's an exploration. It's empowering. It's encouraging. It's fulfilling. But it can be very lonely. So offering classes is a way to where we can all support each other. I'm not especially trying to make myself more psychic anymore, and that might change. I might get curious again.
Right.
So that part I'm probably going to set aside at least for a while. But it's the teaching and connecting with people that's probably going to continue for a good long time.
Yeah. when you were doing the psychedelics, I watched your, 3-part documentary series and stuff. I was so surprised to see you get emotional, and like, you're such a gentleman, and like you're such a professional, but you were swearing a little bit and stuff like that. It's like the raw you was coming out a little bit. Could you describe the psychedelic experience a little bit? And well, what should I ask about that in particular? I mean, like, so obviously enhanced your psychic abilities. But what was there something even more profound than that? Like, was there like, like perhaps like clearing of traumas, or like, that type of thing going on? Like, could you describe the experience a little bit more in detail?
Yeah, but I want to go back to something you said, because I think you came to the conclusion that it made my psychic abilities better, but it didn't. And I put that in my book in the conclusions, that actually the results were not better than without the psychedelic. What it did was show me the part of my mind where I should not look for psychic information, and that's where the hallucinations were occurring. I thought the hallucinations would give me more psychic information. But in Dewdrops of Infinity, I talk about the study. I did microdosing with a group of people and tested them for 6 months to see if the microdosers would perform better on psychic tests than the non-microdosers. They did the same. They were all psychic, but the people microdosing the mushrooms didn't do particularly better. And then comparing my results in the following 6 months, where I took large doses of psychedelics and then did the ESP tests, my results were good, and they were consistent. So they were more consistent, but they weren't actually that much better than other times when I did the tests without psychedelics. But I learned a lot about how my mind works. I learned to look over here for the psychic information. Don't look over here in the mind. And in the microdosing also, I had this aha moment about it helped me relieve a lot of stress and understanding about prior traumas. And feeling relaxed is important for psychic functioning. So I learned that even more. And you don't need to take psychedelics to heal traumas. You can heal trauma through working with a therapist or meditation or doing other types of individual work. But trauma can cause anxiety and stress. That can shut down someone's ability. So I realized that too, because I sort of came out of that. But if someone asked me, after all the work I've done for that year-long study and writing the book and the videos and everything, do psychedelics make you more psychic? Nope. But they teach you how to use your mind so that you perform better. And you can do that the same thing with meditation. Meditation does the same thing. No need to take substances. So, and I'm really saying that, the people out there who are like, maybe I should use substances to try and do better telekinesis. Don't. Just meditate. Meditate, do the techniques. That's sufficient. Yeah.
So you know how I don't know if you did this by accident or not, but you know how on your channel you put it out, you put part 3 out first, part 2 out, and then how that happened? Was that?
I don't know. Maybe I was too tired and not paying attention.
Yeah. So like so like you're almost watching it like backwards. So or at least I did when it came out. I was like, oh man, I gotta watch this, and then. So, I mean, maybe that's why I perhaps got a little bit confused about.
Well, I'm not surprised that you might think, oh, it's clearly the psychedelics make him more psychic, because the results were pretty darn good. But that's just, I just happen to have really good sessions. I've been training a lot. But you'd have to know the full story to realize, oh, that's not unusual for him. And again, it's not that I'm extra psychic. It's that everybody is. With proper training. But you got to see me very emotional. That 3rd episode, I used LSD for most of that, and then in DMT, you see the results of a DMT. And on the LSD, I got very emotional because I was having an understanding about what I was doing and my place in reality, and sort of the fakeness of filming the whole thing, because anything on video seems kind of like it's a little bit separate from reality, although it's still part of reality. But you know what I mean? And the act of filming seemed a little bit egotistical, but it was still to share with other people. And the reason why I was feeling really emotional too is because I was realizing our interconnectedness with the universe on a very deep level.
Mm-hmm.
That everything is operating as part of a natural flow, a natural cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's fine, even though we have problems on a certain level of existence, like traffic or having to pay taxes or personality issues, conflicts, all that stuff is hard. But within the larger space of reality, it's just as sacred as everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
On one level, none of it matters. On another level, it all matters. And I'm using words right now, but the level of understanding that was available to me on the psychedelics was beyond what's possible without them and beyond words. It's hard to describe with words. I'm pretty sure anyone who's gone on these journeys will say the same thing, that things come to you that you cannot speak with words, at least well enough to match the actual experience. But yeah, I had during one of those sessions, I had a spontaneous past life regression. Then I started to understand the suffering of two people very close to me, understandings about things that happened to me in my past and emotional stuff. It's very raw. I often, for a while, I took those videos down and now I put them back up. And it's because a lot of people who watch them probably won't understand what's going on.
Right.
This is very subtle, sensitive work, and it's not meant for entertainment. It's meant for education. I wanted scientists or researchers, psychologists to watch them, but I have no way of knowing who's actually watching these things, but I'm able to track the average view time. And so these videos are generally about 45 minutes long. The average viewer watches it for 9 minutes and then they stop. And I know why. It's kind of boring for some people. Probably for most people, it's very boring stuff. They're like, oh, look, he did telepathy and he's tripping out. That's kind of boring after a while. Because I don't sensationalize it. I don't make it more exciting than it is. This is a real study. This is just real world stuff. And it's not that exciting. It's not great for ratings, you know?
Yeah.
So most people switch videos after a while. They just get bored. So it's really out there for the researchers.
To me, for me personally, seeing your raw stuff. I mean, I read Renegade Mystics as well, and you know, you talked about like the abusive teacher that you had and things like that. Which, I mean, I don't want to really say this publicly, but like, I have a similar experience. I mean, I forgive everybody, and I have my flaws as well, but like, it's I mean, but like to me, seeing that part 3 video that you initially released was like one of the most interesting videos, because I got to see like because my image of you was like, Sean the professional, never curse, never, acting professional, things like that. But even seeing you swear and stuff and like, almost like crying and stuff, that was like, wow, like this is something, So to me, it was one of the most interesting content. Because I mean, to me, like at this point, telekinesis is kind of boring because I've seen so many of it. So seeing something like that was more fascinating to me. Yeah.
Psychedelics are such a hot topic these days. People are curious about it and everything. So here, someone can actually see me under the influence. And it was really hard. The whole time during those 6 months, every time I took a dose and started doing the ESP tests, I really just wanted to lie down in bed and go on the journey because I was hallucinating behind the blindfold, trying to retrieve psychic information at the same time. So I sort of had to keep it together, which is really hard to do because on psychedelics, emotions blow up and I'm seeing all sorts of scenery behind the blindfold. And so it's hard to focus and do the ESP test. It was exhausting. Like and you could probably see in some of the scenes, I'm a little bit shaky and I'm wobbly and you can see the weight because there's this body sensation. It's very heavy and you can see that on me. If anyone watching our interview right now, if they're curious to find those videos, they can just go to my website, go to the telepathy page, and there'll be a link there to these videos on YouTube. But definitely start with number 1. Don't go straight to number 3 because they might not understand. Number 1 has an introduction, a long introduction about Andrea Puharich, the scientist who inspired me to do this work. He passed away back in 1995, I think. But he was a really important guy in the field of consciousness research while he was alive. And he's influenced a lot of people. He's really important. So I talk about him in the beginning of the first episode of this series. And then people understand why I was inspired to investigate psychic abilities with psychedelics. But just to be clear for everyone, really, psychedelics, I found that they did not increase psychic ability, but they did teach me how to use my mind, which is helpful for that. But no one should run out and start taking acid to try and get more psychic or anything like that. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been almost talking for about an hour and stuff. You said that you don't recommend psychedelics. I want to close with this, Sean. What if there's any advice you can give to the viewers, what would it be, like, that are embarking on this, like, metaphysical journey, whether it's telekinesis, remote viewing, telepathy, astral projection, lucid dreaming, like, what is there any advice that you would give to the people that are just embarking on this journey right now?
Yeah. When you're first starting out in your training, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. And after a while, you'll find your very close friends or people in the community who you can trust, and then you can tell them. The reason you don't want to tell them in the beginning is because every other person you tell will look at you like you're crazy, or they're going to question you, or they're going to pressure you to prove it. And we're so sensitive that might shut down your progress. You might actually stop getting better at your ability because you care so much about what people think about you. And that's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. So if you keep it private, you can grow, you can improve, you can strengthen your ability because you're protecting it from social pressures. Then eventually you find people like Ken that you can talk to because he'll believe you. I'll believe you. Us people in the community, we know what you're talking about. We'll support you. But then you still have to be very careful. Like, don't just put out stuff on YouTube or Facebook or whatever until you're well established. When you're strong enough in your sense of self and your abilities are unquestionable, and if you're inspired to teach or inspire others, then at that stage, put it out there. Show stuff, show people what you got. Show your stuff. But it's in the first few months or even years. Be like John Chang sitting alone for months in the jungle. He didn't have to show anybody. He didn't have to defend himself to anybody. That's a beautiful place to be. It is precious. So protect your development by keeping it private for a while until you meet some friends who you can trust, who will be supportive of you. Then tell them. And then when you're really strong in it and you don't care what people think anymore because you're so secure, then share it more widely if you're so inspired. And definitely follow your passion. Like, if you have your choice of 3 different psychic abilities, but you're really curious about one, that's the one that you could focus on the most. And then if you get bored with it, be like me and then go on to something else that interests you. But following your passion instead of what someone tells you should do, that's the best thing. We all want to follow our passion anyway, but sometimes people don't, but don't let it, let your fire burn inside of you. Let your passion drive you. If you're really curious about this stuff, make that your top priority. Stop watching so much TV every day and instead meditate and do your technique, and you'll be happier for it in the end, and really stay away from stressful things like social media, too much time on the internet, too much time watching TV. Can weaken abilities a lot. Just go. If you don't want to train, just go outside, go to a park, go to the ocean, go to the mountains, be with nature, or meditate, get good sleep. If you're a kid, don't drink, don't do drugs. If you're an adult, drinking kind of ruins your sleep cycle. I'm pretty much done with drinking because I prefer a good night's rest at my age. But good sleep and good health is important for your psychic abilities. Don't sacrifice them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Sean, and sharing all this invaluable information. I mean, I seriously can't stress this enough. I see Sean as a role model within this industry. Um, as Sean said, not because he's the best telekinetic, not because he's necessarily the best teacher, but because of how he conducts himself. Like, he's such a professional, he's such a humble person. We all should strive to be like Sean, because there's a lot of, I mean, I'm included, me included, like, I'm still young, and there's like an egoic side of me, the immature side of me and stuff like that. And I really, truly believe that we all should strive to become like Sean, a professional, a sincere person, a humble person. And I just want to say, Sean, like, really, like, I don't idolize you, but I definitely see you as a role model. And like, if I can be like half the person you are, like, I feel like, as a, not in terms of psychic abilities, but as a person, like, I feel like I've came a long way, because I have a lot of work to do on myself, and I don't hold back on my flaws at all. Like, I tell people I have all these, emotional problems and stuff like that. But I just wanted to stress that, I really, really look up to you, Sean. So.
Well, I really appreciate hearing that. And you're doing all the work. Like, the people you look up to, we've all been where you're at. We've all gone through the same challenges you've gone through. We've all felt the pain in our heart, the disappointments, the struggle. We all had to go through that, and we still do. Like, there's no arriving at the end. There's always another challenge. So the challenges you're having, they're good in a sense. Like, we all grow from them. So I just want to encourage you to keep going. And I want to thank you so much, because the work you're doing with your interviews, you're introducing people like Trevor Seven and other teachers to the public and spreading the word. You're inspiring people. You might not think you are, because you see your challenges, but you're doing good work, and you are an inspiration, and you're sharing knowledge and wisdom through these interviews and in other ways, just by being you and being honest about your process too. That's a huge deal. We need to acknowledge that you're very honest, you're transparent, you have great intentions. So I thank you so much for that. And thanks for inviting me to chat with you. This has been fun. I got to say things with you that I can't say on other interviews. So you really got some deep inside stuff for me, which was fun for me. And I'm sure some of the viewers will be like, oh, great, this wasn't just like all the other interviews. So thanks.
I mean, that's what a lot of, like, Wendy's friend Leone told me that too. Like, I asked, like, I'm really good at connecting with people, and like, like, because I, everybody interview, I watch their work, and I know them somewhat and stuff. And so because a lot of people generally ask questions like, hey, Sean, tell me about your telekinesis journey. It's the same redundant questions, right? But today, I kind of, because I'm so familiar with your work, and like, I have personal experiences that I kind of got to, like, ask questions that only, like, us telekinetics can only, hear and stuff. And maybe that's why, like, people like my content is really popular amongst the small, audience that I have, so.
Yeah, it's good to be a big fish in a small pond. That's a really good position to be in.
Yeah, that's kind of what I am, I guess. Well, so, like I said, Sean, thank you so much for coming on. So obviously you guys could see Sean's link right there. Is, it's pretty obvious, mindpossible.com. You can see it in the name section there on StreamYard. So I will put his and actually, like, I'm on every link, it'll be mindpossible.com will be advertised on my YouTube channel, because I am an affiliate for Sean. So, and I've been so in the past, God knows how long, but yeah, so definitely check out mindpossible.com. I'm telling you, Sean's courses are phenomenal. They're, it'll change your life. So, I mean, I can't recommend them enough. So, please check it out. And, once again, thank you so much, Dave, for coming on. So
thanks for having me. It's been great.